Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to my next video. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. And today we're going to continue with the Allegory of the Cave by Plato. So, let's do this. So that he said is a very just distinction. But then, if I'm right, certain professors of education must be wrong when they say that they can put a knowledge into the soul which was not there before, like sight into blind eyes. They undoubtedly say this, he replied. Whereas our argument shows that the power and capacity of learning exists in the soul already, and that just as the eye was unable to turn from darkness to light without the whole body, so too the instrument of knowledge can only be the movement of the whole soul be turned from the world of becoming into that of being, and learn by degrees to endure the side of being and of the brightest and best of being, or, in other words, of the good. Very true. And must there not be some art which will effect conversion in the easiest and quickest manner, not implanting the faculty of sight, for that exists already, but has been turned into the wrong direction and is looking away from the truth? That was the question. Yes, he said, such an art may be presumed. And whereas the other so-called virtues of the soul seem to be akin to bodily qualities, for even when they are not originally innate, they can be implanted later by habit and exercise. The virtue of wisdom, more than anything else, contains a divine element which always remains, and by this conversion is rendered useful and profitable, or, on the other hand, hurtful and useless. Did you never observe the narrow intelligence flashing from the keen eye of a clever rouge? How eager he is, how clearly his paltry soul sees the way of his end. He is the reverse of blind, but his keen eyesight is forced into the service of evil, and he is mischievous in proportion to his cleverness. Very true, he said. But what if there had been a circumcision of such natures in the days of their youth, and they had been served from those sensual pleasures such as eating and drinking, which, like laden weights, were attached to them at their birth, and which dragged them down and turn the vision of their souls upon the things that are below. If, I say, they had been released from these impediments and turned into the opposite direction, the very same faculty in them would have seen the truth as keenly as they see what their eyes are turned to now. Very likely. Yes, I said. And there is another thing which is likely, or rather necessary inference from what has preceded, that neither the uneducated and uninformed of the truth, nor yet those who never make an end of their education, will be able, mistress of state, ministers of state. Not the former, because they have no single aim of duty, which is the rule of all their actions, private as well as public, nor that the latter, because they will not act at all except upon compulsion, fancying that they are already dwelling apart in the islands of the blessed. Very true, he replied. Then I said, the business of us, who are the founders of the state, will be to compel the best minds to attain that knowledge, which we have already shown to be the greatest of all. They must continue to ascend until they arrive at the good. But when they have ascended and seen enough, we must not allow them to do as they do now. What do you mean? I mean that they remain in the upper world. But this must not be allowed. They must be made to descend again among the prisoners in the den, and partake of their labors and honors, whether they are worth having or not. But is not this unjust, he said? Ought we to give them a worse life when they might have a better? You have again forgotten, my friend, I said, the intention of the legislator, who didn't aim at making any one class in the state happily above the rest. The happiness was to be in the whole state, and he held the citizens together by persuasion, and necessity, making them benefactors of the state, and therefore benefactors of one another. To this end, he created them, not to please themselves, but to be his instruments in building up the state. True, he said, I have forgotten. Observe, Glaucon, that there will be no injustice in compelling our philosophers to have a care and providence of others. We shall explain to them that in other states, men of their class are not obliged to share in toils of politics, and this is reasonable, for they grow up at their own sweet will, and the government would rather not have them. Being self-taught, they cannot be expected to show any gratitude for the culture which they have never received, but they have brought you into the world to be rulers of the hive, kings of yourselves and of other citizens, and have educated you far better and more perfectly than they have been educated, and you are better able to share in the double duty. Wherefore, each of you, when his turn comes, must go down to the general underground body, and get a habit of seeing in the dark. When you have acquired the habit, you will see 10,000 times better than the inhabitants of the den, and you will know what the several images are and what they represent, because you have seen the beautiful and just and good in their truth. And thus our state, which is also yours, will be a reality and not a dream only, and will be administered in a spirit unlike that of other states, in which men fight with one another about shadows only, and distracted in the struggle of power, which in their eyes is a great good. Whereas the truth is that the state in which the rulers are most reluctant to govern is always the best and most quietly governed, and the state is in which they are most eager, the worst. Quite true, he replied. Alright, guys. Okay, let's finish with the question. And will our pupils, when they hear this, refuse to take their turn at the toils of state when they are allowed to spend the greater part of their time with one another in the heavenly light? Alright, guys, so we're gonna continue with this great book, but tomorrow. Thank you for joining me today and see you tomorrow. Bye.